Have you turned your thoughts to summer holidays yet? Well, my next guest has just got back from one, but possibly not the relaxing sort of holiday you have in mind, no lying on the beach or slurping sangria. Ruth Jackson has just got back from Brazil, where she spent nearly 2 weeks helping to build an orphanage. Accompanied by a group from her church and the Christian charity Mission Direct, she's been raking, grouting and digging in an effort to help the local people. And she wasn't the only one who was excited to be helping.
I'm going to help loads of people, so it's good.
I'm excited just about the good time we're going to have together. It's going to be fun.
I'm excited about changing people's lives by building homes for them.
The volunteers were given basic labouring instructions, and then they all set to work.
If there's any rocks, just whack the rocks in the ground. But we're aiming for this all the way through like that.
We're pegging in the turf now.
It's all happening there. Top mallet action with the pegs. And Ruth herself is in the studio with me this morning. Good morning.
Hi.
Well, it's, as I mentioned, not a conventional, relaxing sort of get-away-from-it-all holiday. What took you in this direction?
Well, I'm not by any means saying that we don't have poverty and problems here in England, but I think there's something about going away for kind of an intentional period of time and getting away from the distractions that we have here in England and kind of spending that time just intentionally trying to help people. So someone in our church suggested it. They'd been on another trip with Mission Direct to the Dominican Republic, and they suggested that they took a bunch of people, so 16 of us from our church, ranging from sort of 9 years old till, sort of mid-50s, and yeah, all of us went over.
Ever been to Brazil before?
I have actually been last year. I went with a charity called Youth Alpha, but it was a completely different trip.
And where exactly did you go?
We went to a place called Curitiba, which is it's actually one of the venues for the World Cup. But we flew into Sao Paulo, and then it was an hour flight from Curitiba. From Sao Paulo to Curitiba.
I'm guessing it's very different from here.
Completely, yeah, completely.
What's the first thing that strikes you when you get there? What makes you go, wow?
Do you know, it was actually a lot more green than I expected it to be. So I went to Rio before, and it was scorching hot and quite sort of dry and dusty. But Curitiba is actually a little bit more like England in that the weather's similar to here. So actually we were hit by kind of torrential rainstorms halfway through the digging. So it is much more green. But I think what struck me was just the kind of explicit poverty just as you walk around. And I think in England it seems to be more split up into kind of a rich neighbourhood, a poor neighbourhood, whereas in Brazil you've got that juxtaposition right next to each other of an amazing gorgeous house with private gates and things like that, and right next to it is like a slum or
somebody living in a shack.
It was really stark contrast.
And when you got stuck in to start building this orphanage, I mean, were you starting from scratch?
So it's a plot of land, and they've already got 2 orphanages built. One's already being lived in, and the other one, they're about to put some new people in it. And they'd built kind of the bare bones of the third place. So we were doing a lot of kind of tidying up, turfing the ground, like raking the ground, getting rid of all the rubble, turfing it, tiling inside the house, painting, that kind of thing.
Some tough work in there.
Yeah, it was quite hard work, but it was, when you've been on a really long walk and you come back and you're really achy, but it's really satisfying. It was that kind of work. It was, it was amazing.
Well, you recorded the words of one young volunteer called Ned, who told you what his highlight of the trip had been.
I played football with the really good Brazilian people, but it's weird because they don't even have proper football boots, and they're like really, really good at football.
And Ned, you told me when we started that you were excited about seeing people's lives change. Do you think you've done that so far?
Yeah, I have been doing something called grouting, where you fill in all of the cracks in the house.
Good man, filling in the cracks. Crucial. It is. Ruth, what was the highlight for you?
I think one of the highlights was I got the privilege to speak at a homeless shelter. So we predominantly sort of helped build this children's home in the morning, and then in the afternoon we went to visit local projects and kind of see how we could help with that. And one of the things that we did fairly on in the trip actually was visit a homeless shelter. And it's an amazing place. It's run by people who used to be homeless themselves, who, by incredible means have sort of completely turned their lives around and now devote their lives to helping those people who were in a similar situation to they were. And I got the privilege of speaking, and I was speaking about, I told my dad's testimony. He grew up in Moss Side in Manchester. Had a pretty kind of gritty upbringing, but had a fairly dramatic conversion, is now a vicar. And I was talking about the fact that, you know, it was just coming up to Easter, and the fact that Easter is about new beginnings, and that we get a chance to do it all over again. And I was talking about the prodigal son and the fact that actually, you know, we've all gone away, but his arms are open wide for all of us, no matter how much we've screwed up our lives. And I was being sort of simultaneously translated, so I was really worried about that. And I just thought, oh, I don't know if that's going to put a kind of blockage. But actually, I think I speak quite a lot to teenagers, and they just sit there kind of apathetic, arms crossed on their phones, just not really listening to me at all. Whereas these guys, and a lot of them were in visible pain and just, you know, clearly in a bit of a mess just from the sort of outward appearance. And, you know, chatting to some of them about their stories afterwards, they obviously weren't in a particularly good place, a lot of them. And yet, as I was speaking, they were so locked into me in a way that I've never kind of had a congregation lock into me before. And I think part of that was the translation, because they were kind of waiting for the next thing to happen. But that was a real privilege for me. And then we got to pray for them all afterwards, and obviously didn't speak their language, but, you know, God understood what we were all saying. So that was incredible.
And certainly more satisfying than speaking to somebody who's sitting playing with his mobile with his arms folded.
Yeah, definitely.
Have our teenagers got it too easy? Is that the answer to that?
Well, I don't know. I think actually, so we went with quite a few young people on the trip, and I think they were really struck actually by how little a lot of these guys had, but how happy they were. And I think there was something really quite kind of challenging about that actually, you know, we live in the West where we have everything at our disposal, and it's almost as if we have too much, and yet these guys live such simple lives and are so happy by just the little things. And actually it was really challenging for me. Well.
It does give you considerable pause for thought, doesn't it,
definitely.
about the difference in lives in different parts of the world. When all the work was done, it seems that the local people had an unforgettable effect on the volunteers.
And we probably come thinking we're going to be blessing you.
E aí a gente vem pensando que nós estamos vindo aqui para abençoar vocês.
But I think all of us are going home feeling far more blessed by you.
Yes, that the words illustrating the kind of two-way street effect of it all. It's moving experience for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. So we got a chance to kind of bless some of the children as we left. We went to the guys who sort of ran the home and said, is there anything that we can buy for you to bless you? You know, obviously we don't have a huge amount of money with us, but we'd love to bless you. And it really broke my heart that their response was they need underwear. And if there's any possibility of giving us some money for meat. And I just thought, you know, actually, we'd been eating really well at local restaurants and things like that in the evening. And the bulk of Brazilian diet is this incredible meat that's really fresh and beautiful. And they, in this children's home, the only food they get is what's been donated to them, and they have no sort of steady stream of income. And so they literally just eat rice and occasionally kind of beans, but meat is completely off the agenda. And it just broke my heart that was what they were asking for. You know, they weren't asking for anything that we would think
Not that
of.
we would deem a luxury.
Yeah, and so one of the girls, we'd got to know the children quite well because they would come and help us with their kind of raking and things like that. And obviously you don't speak their language, but there's a lot you can get across with body language. And one of these beautiful girls who I'd got to know quite well through kind of working with her, she looked at us with tears in her eyes and she just said, you have no idea how much you've blessed us. This is a miracle. The fact that we can't normally afford to buy groceries, and you've given us a miracle. And I just thought it really broke my heart that, you know, we go to supermarkets and we have the choice of all sorts of things, and a lot of the time that choice annoys us. And yet these guys don't even get the opportunity to go to a supermarket, and we gave them that opportunity, and they were so moved by that. And I just thought that's such a tiny thing for us to give, and yet it seems to kind of really affected them.
Thanks for coming in this morning and telling us about it. Ruth Jackson.